In the past few months, Panama Canal has generated a lot of attention, and that's thanks to President Trump.
Panama Canal, Panama Canal, Panama Canal, Panama Canal, Panama Canal.
Donald Trump called the Panama Canal a vital national asset via a post on social media, and during his inaugural speech on the 20th of January 2025, he made a bold statement that the United States of America will seize the Panama Canal from Panama because Panama has allowed China to take over the canal.
Above all, China is operating the Panama Canal, and we didn't give it to China. We gave it to Panama, and we're taking it back.
President Trump seems not to be bluffing as he continues discussing Panama Canal during his several outings after his inauguration. The idea of the Panama Canal dates back to 1513, when the Spanish conquistador Vasco Núñez de Balboa first crossed the Isthmus of Panama. European powers soon noticed the possibility to dig a water passage between the Atlantic and Pacific Oceans across this narrow land bridge between North and South America. Fast forward to 1848. The discovery of gold in California created a demand for a crossing of Panama as a practical route between the Atlantic and Pacific Oceans. This demand was exploited by American businessman William Henry Aspinwall, who ran steamship legs from New York City to Panama, and from Panama to California, with an overland portage through Panama. This route was soon exploited by other businessmen, such as Cornelius Vanderbilt. Between 1850 and 1855, a syndicate founded by Aspinwall built a railroad, now the Panama Canal Railway, from Colón on the Caribbean Sea to Panama City. The project cost $8 million, 6 times the estimated cost, and between 6,000 and 12,000 of construction workers who succumbed to tropical diseases. However, the railroad soon became immensely profitable for its owners. In 1870, U.S. President Grant established an Interoceanic Canal Commission, which commissioned several naval officers, including Commander Thomas Oliver Selfridge, Jr., to investigate the possible routes suggested by Humboldt for a canal across Central America. The commission decided in favor of Nicaragua, establishing this as the preferred route amongst American policymakers. In the 1880s, France came into the picture. One of the French leadership, de Lesseps, was approached by the Tour Syndicate, a syndicate formed to promote the building of an interoceanic canal across Panama. De Lesseps had made his reputation by successfully constructing the Suez Canal between 1859 to 1869, a route which had soon proved its value in international commerce. After this success, he actively sought new projects. The directors of the syndicate were Hungarian freedom fighter István Ture, financier Jacques de Ranac, and Ture's brother-in-law Lieutenant Lucien Bonaparte Wise, who obtained a concession from the Colombian government to build a canal across Panama. Take note that Panama was still under the occupation of Colombia. The agreement, known as the Wise Concession, was valid 99 years and allowed the company to dig a canal and exploit it. De Lesseps convened an international congress in Paris to examine the possibilities of a ship canal across Central America, with 136 delegates from 26 countries in attendance. De Lesseps used the Congress to promote fundraising for his preferred scheme, which was to build a sea-level canal across Panama, along similar lines to Suez. De Lesseps was able to gain approval of a majority of the delegates for his plan, despite reservations expressed by some who preferred a canal in Nicaragua or who emphasized the likely engineering difficulties and health risks. Following the Congress, de Lesseps organized a company to construct the canal, the Compagnie Universelle du Canal Interoceanique de Panama. The company bought the Wise Concession from the Tour Syndicate, and was able to raise considerable funds from small French investors, on the basis of the huge profits generated by the Suez Canal. Construction of the canal began in January 1881. A large labor force was assembled, numbering about 40,000 in 1888. Although the project attracted good, well-paid French engineers, retaining them was difficult due to disease. From the onset, the French canal project faced difficulties. Although the Panama Canal needed to be only 40% as long as the Suez Canal, it was much more of an engineering challenge because of the combination of tropical rain forests, debilitating climate, the need for canal locks, and the lack of any ancient route to follow. Beginning with Armand Reclus in 1882, a series of principal engineers resigned in discouragement. De Lesseps kept the investment and supply of workers flowing long after it was obvious that the targets were not being met, but eventually, the money ran out. The French effort went bankrupt in 1889 after reportedly spending $287 million, over $10 billion in 2025, an estimated 22,000 men died from disease and accidents, and the savings of 800,000 investors were lost. Work was suspended on May 15, and in the ensuing scandal, known as the Panama Affair, Some of those deemed responsible were prosecuted. De Lesseps and his son Charles were found guilty of misappropriation of funds and sentenced to 5 years imprisonment. Although this sentence was later overturned, and the father, at age 88, was never imprisoned. The United States President Theodore Roosevelt and the United States Senate were interested in establishing a canal across the isthmus, with some favoring a canal across Nicaragua and others advocating the purchase of the French interests in Panama. Bonaventura, who was a subcontractor to the French company that initiated the project, was seeking American involvement, asked for $100 million, but accepted $40 million in the face of the Nicaraguan option. In June 1902, the U.S. Senate voted in favor of the Spooner Act to pursue the Panamanian option, provided the necessary rights could be obtained. On January 22, 1903, the Hay-Herron Treaty was signed by United States and Colombia. The treaty was ratified by the U.S. Senate on March 14, 1903, but the Senate of Colombia unanimously rejected the treaty since it had become significantly unpopular in Bogotá due to concerns over insufficient compensation, threat to sovereignty, and perpetuity. Roosevelt changed tactics and actively supported the separation of Panama from Colombia. On November 2, 1903, U.S. warships blocked sea lanes against possible Colombian troop movements en route to put down the Panama Rebellion. Panama declared independence on November 3, 1903. The United States quickly recognized the new nation. This happened so quickly that by the time the Colombian government in Bogotá launched a response to the Panamanian uprising, U.S. troops had already entered the rebelling province, result in the Colombians being unable to put down the Panamanian rebellion and expel the United States troops, occupying what today is the independent nation of Panama. Shortly after recognizing Panama, he signed a treaty with the new Panamanian government under terms similar to the Hay-Herron Treaty. In 1904, the United States purchased the French equipment and excavations, including the Panama Railroad, for $40 million. The United States also paid the new country of Panama $10 million and a $250,000 payment each following year. In 1921, Colombia and the United States entered into the Thomson-Urrutia Treaty, in which the United States agreed to pay Colombia $25 million, $5 million upon ratification, and four $5 million annual payments, and grant Colombia special privileges in the Canal Zone. In return, Colombia recognized Panama as an independent nation. It is said that during the construction phase of the canal, the U.S. lost a large number of workers running into thousands, caused by diseases and accidents. After World War II, U.S. control of the canal and the canal zone surrounding it became contentious. Relations between Panama and the United States became increasingly tensed. Many Panamanians felt that the zone rightfully belonged to Panama. Student protests were met by the fencing in of the zone and an increased military presence there. Demands for the United States to hand over the canal to Panama increased after the Suez Crisis in 1956, when the United States used financial and diplomatic pressure to force France and the UK to abandon their attempt to retake control of the Suez Canal, previously nationalized by the Nasser regime in Egypt. On December 21, 2024, U.S. President-elect Donald Trump asserted that the United States should retake control of the Panama Canal from Panama, claiming that the rates Panama was charging American ships were exorbitant and in violation of the Torrijos-Carter treaties. The following day, he claimed that the canal was falling into the wrong hands, referring to China. Shortly afterwards, Panamanian President José Raúl Mulino responded, denying that the United States was being unfairly charged or that anyone besides Panama was in full control of the canal, and affirming that the canal was part of the country's inalienable patrimony. However, there are Chinese inscriptions written across the Panama Canal which Trump cited in a post via social media. Panama is with great speed trying to take down the 64% of signs which are written in Chinese. They are all over the zone because China controls the Panama Canal. Panama is not going to get away with it. The Panama Canal is an artificial 82-kilometer waterway in Panama that connects the Caribbean Sea with the Pacific Ocean. Panama Canal is a critical global trade route as it handles approximately 12,000 to 14,000 vessel transits annually and generates over $3 billion. China's influence in the Panama Canal region has grown significantly in recent years, primarily through economic investments, diplomatic engagement, and infrastructure projects. Chinese companies have invested heavily in Panama's infrastructure, including ports, logistics hubs, and energy projects. The Chinese firm Landbridge Group owns and operates the Margarita Island Port, also known as Colón Container Terminal, at the Atlantic entrance of the canal. This port is strategically located and handles a significant portion of the canal's traffic. Panama was one of the first Latin American countries to join China's Belt and Road Initiative in 2017. This has led to increased Chinese investment in Panama's transportation and logistics sectors. Under the BRI, China has funded projects such as the Panama-China Friendship Bridge and the Panama Metro Line 3, which improve connectivity and support the canal's operations. China has also used cultural and educational exchanges to strengthen ties with Panama. For example, Confucius Institutes have been established in Panama to promote Chinese language and culture. On December 24, 2024, a protest was held at the U.S. Embassy in Panama City over Trump's threat to take back the Panama Canal. Protesters referred to him as a public enemy of Panama. On the same day, the Bolivarian Alliance for the Peoples of Our America, ALBA, made up of 10 Central and South American countries, denounced Trump's comments and affirmed its support for Panama's sovereignty, territorial integrity, and self-determination. On January 7, 2025, Trump in a press conference vowed to gain control of the Panama Canal.
Can you assure the world that as you try to get control of these areas, you are not going to use military or economic coercion? No, this is strategy. Yeah. I can't assure you. You're talking about Panama and Greenland. No, I can't assure you on either of those two.
He refused to rule out economic and military action against Panama to seize control of the canal, to secure what he called U.S. economic security.
But I can say this. We need them for economic security.
Do you think the United States will regain control of Panama Canal?